record wet under the magic minute barrier. 57.8, he's got a clean start again and he's away. But look at that race between he and Kieran Wills in the first corner. Don Gridley on the inside as they go round and through to Castrol. Kayne Scott should be able to run away, but that's a good move from Gridley down the inside on Kieran Wills. Roger Freeth in fourth. Greg Lancaster moving up. He's improved on the grid. Behind him, Grant Brennan. And down the back straight toward that hairpin, Kieran Wills moving up on Gridley. Have a look at them under brakes. This will be a good battle between these two as Wills goes around the outside. Is he going to get the line there? Gridley concedes and Wills is back to second place. And it's tight at the front. Kayne Scott not being able to get away with a break this time.
But it almost looks like Kieran Wills has found another 100 horsepower. The way he's streaked by the Oldsmobile Cutlass of Don Gridley. But Kayne Scott pokes it down the front straight now off the mountain. And clears away.
And now he starts to pull his lead, Kayne Scott. In the 2.5 litre Ford Sierra, the turbocharged car with 650 odd horsepower is going magnificently. Kieran Wills, as David has said, has found a heap of extra horsepower and he's in front of Gridley, overtaking him on the first lap at the end of the straight, and the spaces start to get pulled a little wider now down the back as Kayne Scott leaps away in the lead. Looking at the start again, good and clean for everyone. Scott on the inside, Wills on the outside, and Gridley just poking through there as Wills went wide through champion. The ground was made up again. Back with the leader, Kayne Scott. Wills trying to keep him honest in the early laps anyway, but it looks as though Kayne Scott will be able to pull away again. Coming round to complete the second now. Kayne Scott in the lead by a substantial margin now over Kieran Wills and starting to pull away a little as they go into Castrol for the third time. Looking back through the order, this man, Kayne Scott, in the Ford 2.5 litre Cosworth Sierra, is in the lead of the race by a good margin now from Kieran Wills in the RX-8, the V8-powered RX-7. In third place, the Oldsmobile Cutlass there of Don Gridley. Back in fourth place is Roger Freeth in the 4-litre V8-powered Toyota Starlet. Grant Brennan in the V8 RX-7 is behind him. Roger Freeth in the Castrol CRC Starlet.
Tony, that car used to be a winning car. We've known and talked about this Road Rocket, this little Toyota Starlet, but just now you seem to have a supercar to win in this category. Roger Freeth just hasn't got any answer for these guys. He's running in third place in the championship, but he just hasn't got an answer for the top man.
Certainly not at Pukekohe, where horsepower does count. And looking at the leaders, what it's being beaten by is the imported technology. Freethy's car is a monocoque, production-based car, whereas these cars, Kayne Scott Sierra, and the car in third place, Don Gridley's Oldsmobile Cutlass, are purpose-built, imported, space-framed Tranzam cars. And we'll have a look at what exactly a Tranzam car is as opposed to a road-based car.
Tranzam car is a hybrid car, very high horsepower, and they basically have no constraints. 17-inch tyres, as you see here. Very high performance engine, 600 horsepower out of this Ford Pinto. Absolute superiority with electronics and no limits contained in the car.
And Kayne, it doesn't have a normal monocoque frame like a road car.
No, Tony, this is a space frame vehicle. It's built from a series of tubes welded together. Chrome molly, in fact, this car. It helps us get the dead right geometry for steering, cornering, and of course the right places for tyres and braking to be fitted to the car.
Now, Kayne, you're obviously almost sitting in the back seat, and nothing in this car resembles a road car.
No, it doesn't, Tony. It's quite different from the standard Ford Sierras. All the weight in this car we've tried to move as far back as possible, which is the reason for the seat so far back. The tank you see inside, there's the dry sumped oil tank. We've moved as much fluid as we can right back in the car.
And very sophisticated electronics?
Very, very sophisticated. The car is as tunable as well as anything that we've ever driven. Well, fuel pressure is very important for this particular vehicle. Obviously the tank limits the amount of fuel going to the brain here for the electronics, very sophisticated. Also it's the high impact, it's got a large bladder inside the fuel tank in case of any collision.
Last question, is it a nice car to drive?
It's a fantastic car to drive. This is the Mark Pitch Ford Sierra entry and it's a great car to drive.
So Tony, I guess today you just can't run a big V8 engine in the back of a Cortina or the front of a Cortina the way the Rob McElrays used to run, the Oscar cars, the old all-comers as we know it. It's really got into a high-tech class and you've got to have something fancy.
And the good thing for the purists is that it is not just horsepower. The reason why this car is so quick and Don Gridley's car capable of being so quick is the chassis, the way they handle, and that's indicated in the lap times. 58.7, the new lap record, and that would have put them about 4th or 5th on a Formula Pacific car grid. Their terminal speed at the end of the straight is considerably more than a Pacific car, and the handling improvements are coming up so well with cars like this one, like the RX-8 as they call it, an RX-7 with a V8 in it. Beautifully built, very adjustable suspension, good chassis, they point in well, they go through fast corners well, and that's what's pulling up their times.
I read the specifications for this car last week, Tony, and it's full of the most trick stuff in the world. It's got quick change differentials and all stuff out of sprint cars, as they're called in the States, and all you petrol heads know what I mean. They're the real gun horsepower cars that are just made for the dirt, bulletproof stuff, which goes very, very fast for quite a long time. We're finished are the days, as I said earlier, finished with the days where these cars are hand grenades. They're rocket ships.
So Kieran Wills, the championship leader, the battle has been with Kayne Scott. Only 5 points in the championship.
Five laps down in this Hansells Sun Valley Championship round, the second of 3 today, and as they went into this race today, 5 points lead to Kieran Wills on the screen now over Kayne Scott in the Sierra car, and that lead could evaporate today, remember, right now, in fact, because remember 2015-12, the points awarded system for this category of car. So 20 if Kayne Scott were to pick up today in this heat would make it equal going into the final round today.
Which sets up beautifully for the flying farewell, as they normally call the last big saloon car race of the day at a meeting. They've had 3 at each meeting, short races. Certainly they still bring the crowds alive. I would like to have seen bigger fields for them. But the technology is such and the expense is such that you really, I guess, can't expect to get 30 or 40 cars on a grid of that standard.
I think we're in between things, so to speak, Tony. What's happened here is that we saw a pretty trick car come out last year in the hands of Steve Diamond. There's a lap ball going out at 64.4, so the pace is a little bit slower now. But Steve Diamond brought out a pretty trick car from the States last year. It was the subject of a lot of controversy, whatever you like to call it, and it made the guys in the category think, what do we want from this thing? So they sat down, they thought about the rules, they thought about the intonation stuff, the South Island versus the North, and they came up with Tranzam. And they got together with the Hansells people, put together a neat series, and this is the rules now, which will be around for quite some time. So I'm sure that Kayne Scott loves the way it is. The way we look at it, he's coming up for a final lap now.
There's a lot of people around who are somewhat jealous of Kayne Scott's drives and who are saying that he's only where he is because somebody's put big dollars behind him. Well, I can tell you for sure, somebody put big dollars behind him because of this. He wins races, and he did his apprenticeship in saloon cars, and he worked hard, and he did it with inferior machinery and proved that he could drive. And he takes the race out from Kieran Wills and Don Gridley again. And Kayne Scott now equal in the championship in the lead with Kieran Wills. There's the result confirmed in the Hansells Sun Valley Tranzams, the second of 3 races for the day. Kayne Scott in the Sierra, Kieran Wills in second place, and Don Gridley, and that means that the points are equal up front.
Coverage of the 1991 Peter Jackson International Motor Racing Series was presented by One World of Sport and Global Sports and Promotion.